Ladies and gentlemen, welcome back to another episode of Crossing Borders. As I mentioned before, I'm no longer your host. I am your tour guide. I'm Mike Gann. I'm joined by, of course, Extremo Alex Soto. Alex, what's up, buddy?
On there, Mike.
You nice and refreshed from not just that trip down to Mexico, Acapulco, but then also thank you for your service. Obviously, Veterans Day last week is why we didn't have an episode, letting Alex enjoy his holiday.
Yeah.
So we got Alex back. We're going to talk about everything that happened over at LUX Fight League 18. Maybe he can give us a little bit of glimpse going into Fight League 19 on December 10th. We'll talk about all that. We'll talk about his trip. Of course, the show is brought to you by Fighters First, Fighters First Network, FightersFirst.shop. Check out the Extremo collection on there. I brought back the legendary Bruce Lee and a couple of the legendary shirts. You can get those on the website. And I want to go ahead and announce right here on the show. I put it on social media earlier. We're starting Black Friday a little bit early. There's a Black Friday promotion. Check out our social media. Check out the screen right now. Use the promo code BF20. Save yourself 20% site-wide now through the weekend of Black Friday, so all the way through the 28th. And then we may do something fun for Cyber Monday as well. But go ahead. You've been saving up. You wanted to get those Fighters First shirts. Now it's the perfect time. Save 20%. Alex wanted you to pay full price. I'm trying to help you out. So go ahead and cop those shirts while you can before Alex jacks the price back up and you got to pay even more. So that said, Alex, you ready to talk about some fights?
Talk about it, man. This is what we live for right here, man. I love this stuff.
All right. Well, fresh off LUX Fight League 18, you had quite the adventure down there. Obviously, the first part of it was almost like vacation, going to from, oh my God, I know the people on the East Coast and places like Denver and stuff are going to hate us for saying this, but you went from nice and cold, 60 degrees, to back to your 80 degrees of sunny Acapulco. First off, how was your trip?
It was a great trip, Mike. First of all, if you ever had to fly out of San Diego, highly recommend doing the border crossing where you just pay your tickets, $30. You walk across the bridge right into the airport, catch a flight to anywhere in Mexico for like at least half off of your ticket price from LA, San Diego, Arizona. If you're wherever you're at in the United States. I mean, it's just, man, it's a really good deal. I think the ticket price for Acapulco, I mean, I didn't pay for it, the promotion pays for it, which is a common question I get. Believe it or not. But I think it was, I don't know, maybe a couple $100, maybe $120 to go down to Acapulco.
That's crazy.
It was, yeah, and it was beautiful, man. Going out there, it was freezing in San Diego that day. In fact, there was fog as we were leaving. The fog was rolling in. My partner in crime here, where we do the announcements, Francisco X Rivera, his flight got canceled later that night and couldn't make the show. He was actually a couple of fights late, where he managed. I mean, it was a scramble for him, a 24-hour scramble to get to the show.
Yeah,
and,
like I remember you texting me. You said you were going to have to do the show solo.
Yeah, dude, I was trying to find anybody who spoke English to come join me, and I said, hey, do you speak English? Any friends in Mexico City that are available? But Francisco X Rivera pulled off, and he showed up. He was a little bit late. He was about three fights into it. He showed up, and when I was just like, man, what a surprise! But he pulled it off, man, and now we had a great show.
He was
Great
looking
event.
sharp. He showed up ready to go. He had the suit tight. He was ready to roll.
Professional, man. That guy knows his game. He knows how to play it, and he's done it all over the world. So he showed up, and we ended up calling some fantastic fights. Especially that main event was fire.
Well, let's go ahead and start and talk about the main event. Of course, Alessandro Costa kept his title over Enrique Kike Gonzalez. Not a complete loss for Gonzalez, by the way, because I guess his baby boy was born like the next day, or daughter. I don't remember if it was a boy or girl, but he had a brand new baby born like hours after the show. So not much time to mourn the loss because he was obviously in celebration mode after there. So congratulations to his family. But I'll tell you what, as impressed as I was with Costa, I'm a new fan of Gonzalez. Kike Gonzalez brought that fight, and he was fun to watch. He didn't get the win. I mean, Costa is the truth, but break down that fight for us because, like I said, I'm a brand new fan of Kike Gonzalez. I love that guy.
I'm glad you are, man. So that's the third time I've seen him fight for LUX Fight League, and he runs his own team, and you said it right, dude. His stock went up, especially with the fight fans in Mexico because he puts on those kind of fights and very exciting. And he brought it to Costa, man. Had no respect for him, just threw down, and it was so much fun to watch. I think if you want to break down that fight, it all goes to the calf kick that Costa was landing. That calf kick, it has really taken, a priority of striking in MMA recently. I believe in the last couple of years now. It's
a big thing now. Yeah.
It's a really, a really good and debilitating attack to attack calf, man. That lead calf kick, man, it is. If you're not checking those, if you stand in a wrestler stance, right? This is why I think Mexico is driving this force of attacking the calf kick, is because a lot of American fighters have that wrestling stance when they're fighting in MMA, which doesn't really give you that much time to really check that kick. It doesn't take that much to move. When you have a wider stance, you're stuck, you're set, you really can't move, and that's one of the earlier fights.
Same with the boxing stances too.
Yeah, exactly. Now, if you look at the fight with old school, right? I'm taking this back to old school. Jose Aldo versus Uriah Faber. He was whooping Uriah Faber with a leg kick, but it all started a lot with those calf kicks too.
You can look even more recently to Poirier McGregor. The first fight, not even the second fight, the first fight, where McGregor was getting the best of him early, but Poirier just kept, because he came in from that boxing stance because he was training for the Pacquiao fight. So he had more of that boxing stance the first time they fought this year. Well, the second fight overall, but the first time they fought this year. And Poirier tore him up with those calf kicks. So when they came back the second time, you saw McGregor back in a more traditional karate MMA type stance, trying to protect against those calf kicks. I mean, unfortunately, he broke his leg anyway in a different reason, different situation. But Poirier, just like recently, and you see it with the current champ Oliveira, loves those calf kicks. You've seen even last week, like Yair Rodriguez with Max Holloway, which was an incredible fight. Leg kicks. Like, it is such a huge thing.
Yeah, it's really taking on a new meaning here with calf kicks, and the effectiveness is being really demonstrated in a lot of different fights and at a lot of different levels. And I think Costa or Alessandro Costa was able to capitalize on that, knowing that it was going to be mostly a striking battle going into the fight with Kike Gonzalez. But I think one of the other things I like about the main event and how it performed and how it is Alessandro Costa's real the ability to join in on the striking game. He is all about throwing up a good fight. I mean, his ground game was dominant. The little bit of time that they spent on the ground, Alessandro Costa was immediately in a dominant position and control of the fight. But he was all about putting up a show, man. He's not a guy who's gonna wrestle you to the ground and try to submit you. This is a guy that wants to put up a show, and he's very, very intelligent on the striking game. He's very powerful on the striking game, and his ground game is just very, very. I think if he would transition into the UFC, which I think he's got a really bright future in the UFC, I think he's gonna do fantastic with the fans, and then also fantastic with the competition at 125 pounds.
Yeah, I don't think there's a lot of guys at 125 pounds, even in the UFC, doing what he's doing. You mentioned the ground game, obviously the black belt, Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu, but the fact that he is such a calm striker, like he's very patient, he picks his shots, he doesn't go rushing in, he knows what he's doing on his feet, even if he doesn't have to. And then, like you said, if he goes to the ground, then it's lights out, it's over. In this case, third round, ground and pound, finished him out. But for Kike Gonzalez's part, he had no backup. He didn't he left everything in the cage. And after 3 rounds, I mean, I could have seen that fight going all 5 and it would have been crazy. But even in just 3 rounds, not just me, like you said, I'm sure he made fans all over Mexico, all over the world, of course, on UFC Fight Pass, Fox Sports Deportes, and all that stuff that LUX Fight League is available now. Obviously, LUX Fight League is growing tremendously through all this exposure as well. But just a tremendous, tremendous main event. Who do you think might be next for Costa?
Oh man, there's a lot of talk about maybe putting Calval in, who's going to be co-main event. I think he's from Costa Rica. We've seen him fight already against Costa, but he got caught very much like Henry Cejudo got caught early against Demetrius Johnson. With a nice body, neat body. So we might see an opportunity to see in that that double that Costa is Calval too. Hopefully, I think that'll be a really exciting matchup because I think he's the only guy right now at 125 pounds that can do something to him. Also, I would love to see Alessandro Costa just because I'm a fan, okay? Not that this is going to be a strategic move for him, but to move up to 135 and take on the bantamweight champ right there. That would be a fun fight to watch.
Kind of like a super fight. It'd be nice. Obviously, I'm sure Kike Gonzalez is going to take some time with his family, newborn baby, and then he'll be back soon enough to bang out another great fight. Over in the co-main event, Martinez over 155 pounds, lightweight. First round, guillotine over Pollo Reyes. Not much to break down. He came in and he just kind of took care of business.
Yeah. So that was a surprising upset. I mean, we call it an upset only because a lot of the Mexican fans are such fans, and it's a fan favorite for Polo Reyes. But really, if you look at the both resumes on both fighters, the tremendous experience was I think he's got over 40 fights or something like that.
I mean, you know how Topology is, whether it's official or unofficial. Technically, he's 23-13. Maybe he has way more than that. I don't know. So
yeah, he does. He's been around the world. I mean, look him up on. There's a lot of video on him fighting all over the world. And to me, it wasn't like a big. I knew it was going to be a really tough fight for Polo Reyes. They're not doing him any favors at LUX Fight League, and I don't think any of the fighters are. Their fight has been very equally matched, and when you see that fight, it was a tough fight, and I think Reyes recognized that. He knew he had a really tough fight in front of him, and there was a lot of pressure into this fight, and I think you could see it in the dressing room, you could see it at the weigh-ins. I think Polo Reyes maybe had a little mental stuff going on behind the scenes. Where he really didn't perform at his best. This is me just coming up with really excuses for the guy, but really it was a really good performance and a lot of experience in that cage, and it was great to see that.
Yeah, I mean, as with any fighter, I'm sure any number of things could have gone on behind the scenes, but in the cage, the veteran Martinez came in and took care of business, and he's one of those guys. I've seen a couple highlights of him before. If he gets your neck, it's over, and that's exactly what happened. He got the guillotine. And there's some guys that are just specialists at that, right? I remember back in the day, you want to go back in the day, I think it was Cody McKenzie in the UFC, and he had one skill. That was it. Get your neck and go to sleep. And that was it. Yeah, the choke, the different guillotines, different chokes. That was it. And he got his ass beat any other fight. But when he got your neck, it was over. In fact, I think he even fought on the card you fought at in Fairfax, if I'm not mistaken.
Yeah, you're right. That's the last time I saw it because he was I think he was fighting. He was fighting Mendes. I don't remember who he was fighting, but Chad Mendes ended up getting down with a gnarly body kick. But yeah, McKenzie had a really nice guillotine choke that was like I think like a praying mantis like, it was just so really, he just had a really good technique for it. And you're right. I mean, if he didn't get that, then it was all over.
In fact, we were just talking about it like almost a year ago when Figueiredo fought, I think it was Alex Perez. And it's like, that Deiveson Figueiredo has a vicious guillotine. Why would you go to where you can get in trouble? And at the time, the late Sergio Da Silva on our show, Art of MMA, was like, why would you play into his strength? You know what he does. Do anything but that. Don't go towards that. And he did. He thought he could get away with it. He got caught. Game over. This case, almost the same thing. Martinez, a veteran. He has a vicious guillotine. Caught Reyes with it. It doesn't matter what was going on behind the scenes. If he gets you with it, it's just going to be something that's just, especially when you're still dry in the first round. There's not a lot of sweat. There's not a lot of buildup. So that was lights out.
It was beautifully set up because he attacked the body with a front kick, and he was just jabbing the liver with the front kick, pop, 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 and it just got Martinez on the ground. And Martinez, Paulo Reyes was able to, Reyes was able to kind of scramble for a little bit, but just got caught in that guillotine. But he was still down afterwards. I mean, that was a gnarly kick to the liver there. So, it was a beautiful setup. Like I said, that's the experience. You just saw that he brought, and man, got a big upset win, man, and congratulations to him. I think it'd be a great fight to see him at 155 pounds taking Daco Cosillo next, who also got about 20-something fights on his books, and see how he does against him.
Definitely. That'd be a fun fight. Elsewhere on the card, you had Cabello getting the ground and pound over Sanchez, get the first round KO, TKO. Rodriguez got another guillotine choke over Uribe. It's a 125-pound fight. He goes to 2-0, so, down the road, get a little bit more experience. That might be another contender for Costa. Cardoza got the decision over Martinez. Garcia with a split decision over Rivera. How did you see that? Did you see that as a good call?
Okay, so this is, I think, all the fights, the right person won, in my opinion, as sitting broadcast on the broadcasting side and sitting case side. I think everybody won on the fight card. However, some of those calls were, the split decisions were kind of questionable in my mind. So that brings it back to the judging and the unification of judging and how it can be implemented in fights. I mean, there's some of the stuff that I talked to with the production team is like, hey, why don't we implement live scoring so that that everybody knows what's at stake in each round. How is it going to change the game? How will it impact the fighter's mentality going into a third and final round? So there's, I think the reason the UFC hasn't done any live scoring, I think it's because they're afraid to change the game. And I think that will have a big impact on it.
I think it's a money thing. Me and Brandon Catino and Art of MMA have talked about this relentlessly. Even this week, the rant was on what wins a round, right? Because the scoring in what wins a round has changed over the years as well. Like 10 years ago, if you got a takedown, you almost won the round. Like it was almost guaranteed. Nowadays, it's like, well, was there any damage done? Was there this? Was it a matter of who controls a round and who doesn't? And then we've had so many questionable MMA scoring decisions in not just UFC, but obviously around the globe over the years, that arguing about MMA judging has almost been a weekly occurrence anytime there's a big event. And I know I personally have ranted on this thing. Brandon's a huge proponent of open scoring. I think putting it on the screen, not just for the fighters, but the fans at home, I think would be awesome. Going into the last round, it does take away a little bit of the suspense, because you don't really know until the scorecards are read, which is kind of like, all right, it keeps you on the edge of the seat. I think that's more of why Dana hasn't done it in the UFC. But that said, I think if the right company came along, put the right money into it, I think Dana and them would listen, just like with any other deal or any other kind of sponsorship. You know, if it was like open scoring by crypto or whoever else, I think it would be done tomorrow. I think it's just it's a dollar sign. I don't think it's much more than that. As a fan, I kind of do like the suspense of not knowing, but at the same time, how many times have we been left on the end of like how'd that guy or girl win a fight, and then we're just all kind of like, wait, that's ridiculous. So even just like I'm a huge Rose Namajunas fan. Sorry to cut you off. And even that Weili Rose rematch, I thought Weili won. I thought she won the first 3 rounds. I thought Rose controlled the last 2 as a champion should. She came out, did what she had to do, but I thought Weili won the first 3 rounds. So seeing something like that, seeing where the scoring was going into the last round, I think would have been incredible for especially for Rose. Then she wouldn't have gone out and just controlled. She might have gone for the finish in the last round. So I do think it does kind of change the game, definitely.
That's my point. And you know, in every sport, you see how your team is doing. You baseball, you see how your team is doing, how it's performing. In basketball, in soccer, name a sport, you know how you're doing and where you stand. Pole vaulting, you know how you did and how you need to do. So every sport has that that feedback to the fighter, let you know where you at, not the fighter, but the athlete, let them know where they're at and what they need to do to accomplish, what's at stake for each round. So for me, it's a no-brainer, open scoring. Now, how is it going to change the game? You just mentioned one example there. We're looking into a third and final round. You got to get that knockout. You're down. Or you thought, how many times have you seen UFC fights where you look at a fight and the coaches are giving, in your opinion, right? You're like, in our own opinion, we're looking at the coaches like, oh, you got this, got this, got this. But I think the majority of the crowd is like, no, dude, you're down 2 rounds. Your fighter needs to go out and fight. And meanwhile, that fighter he's thinking he won the fight, right? Both him and the coach are in the assumption that they've won the fight. And so the fighter fights conservatively, thinking he's won the round, and really he was behind the whole time. Because with different camera angles, we're able to see different things. I know being a judge is very difficult. I've done it a couple of times myself. It is tough when you can't see the fighter, what kind of damage is being inflicted when they're, up against the cage, on the floor across from you. So I can see how things can get muddled a little bit in the fight when you're sitting cage side. This gives it a big change up. This will be, a monumental change in how these fighters would then come into each round. I think it's going to change the game, and I think it will change it even better.
No, I agree. I mean, everything evolves. You look at PFL with the smart cage, right? They're sitting there, they're judging punching power, they're judging speed, they have ref cams now. Eventually the game is going to evolve. And whether we just talked about this last episode too on Art of MMA, that there was a time like Scott Coker's always been ahead of the game having women fight in MMA. Dana was the last to the game because Ronda Rousey made so much noise, he knew he could make money with her. But there was a time he said she would never fight. There would never be women in the UFC. Now they're main eventing. Like this week, the main event in the UFC is Miesha Tate versus Caitlin Vera. Like the women are main eventing. And just a few years back, he said they would never be in the UFC. So things change, things evolve. And I think open scoring is obviously the next evolution. And I'd even take it a step further that I like the way one does things where they just pick a winner. They don't even they obviously have their rounds, but at the end of the day, the judges say, okay, based on everything I saw, this is the winner. Instead of having, was that a 10-8? Was this? Was that? They just all right, overall, this is who won the fight. And I think that's even a further evolution that you could do, because then you have no draws. You might have a split decision, but you don't have draws. You don't have weird, funky scoring. So that's another thing I'm a big proponent of. But back to this fight, because we got way sidetracked, but I definitely kind of wanted to segue and let you talk about that open scoring that you were very passionate about. Garcia, though, you think that was a good call?
I think that was a good call. It was a split decision. I thought it was a unanimous decision, I think, from what I remember correctly. I'll have to watch the fight again. But I think Garcia had won that fight, in my opinion, unanimously. But it was a split decision.
Cool. Urquiza got the decision against Rivera. Urquiza's now 4-0 at the lightweight division. Somebody keep an eye on. Moro Alfonso, another undefeated fighter at your favorite bantamweight position, now 2-0. Kind of a weird thing. What happened with Luis Pinego? Because knockout, retirements, like, explain that to the people. What happened in that fight?
Well, what happened was he broke his arm in that fight.
Yeah.
So maybe we weren't able to show you guys there in the fight, but his arm was broken. He had broken it at some point in the fight. I couldn't see it in any of the replays, but his arm was broken, and that fight was sick. Both those bantamweights are gnarly good. They're fantastic bantamweight fighters. I think they fought each other a little too early. I'd love to see that rematch. I think I'd love to see the bantamweights, both of them, go different directions, and really clean out their respective division of 135 pounds. But and I have a feeling that they're gonna run that one back sometime after a few fights, because I thought they were both very talented. I thought they both had a lot. They're both coming from really good training camps and a very powerful, very, very smart. Both of them really smart fighters.
Yeah, I couldn't tell watching it what happened to Pinego. Like I heard injury, but I didn't even know on the broadcast that it was a broken arm. Like it was just very confusing, like the whole situation. So yeah, I mean, they're both young up and coming fighters. Unfortunately, Pinego's now 500, whereas Alfonso's undefeated. I'm sure if they both keep winning, a few fights later, they'll figure that one out. The ladies got down at 115 pounds. Zamora got the win over Vidal, unanimous decision. Decision. Gavita got the win over Cardano. Or no contest? I'm actually reading these results. I didn't see these two fights. What happened with Gavita and Cardano?
Was that
it lists Vida as a winner, but then it says NA on how it happened.
Oh, gotcha. It was a decision. Win.
Okay, that was one of the early fights. I guess they didn't get all the deep data for that one. I missed a couple of the early fights. I didn't get a chance to catch those. So, trusting your expert opinion on that. That's why we got Alex here, because he was there, he was live, and he was calling the fight with the ring announcer.
Yeah. So much fun.
And then the other fight, Medina over Chavez, unanimous decision at 185 pounds.
Yeah, I thought that was.
Go ahead. I'm sorry, I didn't mean to cut you off.
Sorry, I thought that was going to be like a big knockout, one rounder, but it ended up going the whole round to a wrestling match. Those guys were just all over each other, and that's how it started off the night.
Other than the main event and co-main event, any of those other fights really kind of stand out to you as like highlight reel, like must-watch fights?
Yeah, there's two bantamweights and the main event. The two bantamweights at Pinego that we talked about. I think those guys are future bantamweight contenders, top-level guys. And then also Alessandro Costa continues to reign at 125 pounds. So I see the need for 125, especially now that Moreno is the UFC champ. I'm surprised to not hear too much of signings at 125 pounds. So I'd like to hear, what's happening with that division. I need to take a closer look at it to see what's actually happening at 125 with the UFC. What's happening. There's a lot of noise coming into it. I know that Moreno's got that fight coming up to his first defense coming up. But aside from that, not a lot of noise at UFC at 125.
I think they're all kind of waiting to see what shakes out from that trilogy. Obviously, the first one, Figueiredo arguably did win if it wasn't for the point taken away. The second one, Moreno came out like a house of fire. It just took out Figueiredo quick. So I think this is a situation, as far as the UFC goes, I think it's a situation where, all right, let's see what happens in this trilogy. If Moreno looks great again, Figueiredo probably moves up to 135 pounds, which he's probably going to do anyway because he's just so big for that weight class. And then Moreno obviously has his pick. You got Pantoja, who's been knocking at the door for his shot. He's already beat Moreno twice, once in the Ultimate Fighter, once officially. Alex Pantoja, and then you also have Perez, who wants another shot at it because he got caught in that guillotine with Figueiredo. So you have some guys there as far as doing it. Your boy Henry Cejudo's been making noise about making a comeback, maybe as high as 145 pounds. So I don't think that really anybody knows what's up on that one. I don't even think Dana takes him seriously at this point because Henry says he's coming back so many times and then he just hasn't done it yet. I know he also made a lot of noise, 135 pounds for Funkmaster Aljamain Sterling and everything going on there. And then I would be remiss, Alex, if I didn't call you out when I said Max was going to take care of business with Yair Rodriguez. It's not often that you're wrong, but once again, just like Kike Gonzalez, Rodriguez raised his stock 1,000% even in a loss. What did you think of that fight this last weekend?
Sometimes when I get too emotional in fights like this one in particular, because I'm a huge fan of Yair, I think I let my emotions get better of me on this one. So I will be highlighting when I'm giving you guys a call out when I'm explaining who's going to win and who's not, for betting needs. I really have a really high statistical success rate on my UFC fights. So I will highlight when it's an emotional prediction and when it's a stylistic one. So and a more analytical prediction.
Well, in fairness, now that the season's over for Art of MMA, we'll be back January. But now the season's over for that. You did finish 2-0 because we couldn't get you back on the show for timing purposes. So you did keep undefeated for that season. So there you go. And then we couldn't make the bet because Veterans Day, Alex was enjoying himself, well-deserved as well. But so I couldn't talk to you about the Max fight before it happened. But Max Holloway is in a league of his own sometimes. And as great as Rodriguez put on a performance, and he did, he brought it for 5 rounds. He had Max hurt a couple of times. Max had him hurt. But I think at this point you have to take a tank to stop Max because he can take so much damage and just keep coming forward. But I mean, I don't even know what's next. We've talked about it. Maybe the trilogy with Volkanovski. He's talked about Conor McGregor. He's talked about everybody. So Max Holloway's got his hands full. And for Rodriguez, a guy who spent 2 years out of the sport for various reasons. At one point, the UFC cut him because they thought he wasn't taking fights. Then he came back. Then he, big knockout over Zombie. Maybe Ortega's next for him because he, but he's going to have to take a few months to kind of recover from this one. So Ortega, I can see a rematch with Zombie since that one went down to the very last second, literally the last second of the fight. So another guy Alex is familiar with as he fought on the Korean Zombie Dustin Poirier card. We talked about that UFC Fairfax card way back in the day. It's just kind of crazy, right? December 11th, you see Dustin Poirier going for the lightweight title. And then you remember back in 2012, I think it was, and he's getting, stopped by Zombie in the 4th round. I still remember him walking through the hotel lobby, like in tears, because that's how, Dustin Poirier wears his heart on the sleeve. Win, loss, everything is outward emotion. He doesn't hide it. He doesn't mask it. He's not, tough bravado. I'm not showing you how I feel. No. When he lost to Korean Zombie back in the day, he was through that lobby to the point where I was like, dude, pick your head up, man. You're still an incredible fighter. That was a tough fight. You got started late. If, maybe you started a little bit faster, it would have been a different fight, but you're incredible. You'll be back. And he was like, thank you. And then he kind of just moseyed off to his hotel room at that point because he didn't want to be around people. And it was like a huge after party at the hotel and everything. I'm talking about a little bit inside behind the scenes knowledge of UFC Fairfax, UFC on Fuel. I don't remember what number it was, but I was busy hanging out with Burt Watson and Brittany Palmer. So it was a good night. It was a good night. Before we get out of here, any fun stories from Acapulco?
Oh man, nothing. It's just I took a trip on a. They're like, hey, take one of the one of the vans. There's these vans that pick you up there on the strip. So you just pull over, a van pulls over, and there's a guy with a rope who opens the door and closes the door. And then you get in, and it's like this shitty van.
Are you being kidnapped?
Just like these. Yeah, I'm like, no, it's hilarious, and it's like 1 peso or 10 pesos, which is equivalent of about 50 cents, 45 cents, and they just goes up and down, and they pick up random people all day long, and that was a lot of fun. So I mean, I had 100 peso bill on me, so I paid everybody that was in the truck with me, and gave back, and paid it forward, I should say, those guys. But it was a lot of fun. Love Acapulco, and I'm heading now next to Mexico. Mexico City's coming up, so stay tuned. December 10th, LUX 19. That's going to be Bam Valenzuela will be taking on JC. I forget his last name, JC
Lamas.
Right, that's correct. And who's fought in bare knuckle fights. He's fought in a lot of fights around the United States, around the world too. So it's going to be a really exciting fight. A good challenge, I think, for Bamba Valenzuela, who's been
kind of a quick turnaround too.
Yeah, well, he didn't get hurt at all in the last fight against our boy. What's his name again?
Brandon something. I can't think of it right now. Brandon something. What was it? Brandon. Kessler. Yeah.
Yes. Anyway, so it was not even it wasn't a big fight. So for him, so I think it's a great turnaround, and he's a big boy, 185,
middleweight,
big kid. So now you don't hear a lot of those guys, and he looks good. He looks jacked. He looks in shape. He's young. So really exciting guy to look after next.
Now you also got Pato Martinez going against Jimenez.
Yes, it's gonna be a really exciting matchup. We'll talk about this next week on the next episode of LUX 19 and all the crazy food that I'll be eating down in the city.
2 weeks from now, because next week is Thanksgiving.
Okay, gotcha. Okay, 2 weeks from now, that's what we'll talk about. LUX 19. So
I love you, Alex, but I'm not talking to you on Thanksgiving unless it's like a text saying Happy Thanksgiving. That's about it.
Okay.
No shows next week. I will be traveling back to DC to see family for the weekend. So we'll get back in action. We'll get caught up. We'll get previewed and everything. The fight card is not till December 10th, so we got plenty of time. So we will definitely talk about that all in 2 weeks. No episode of Crossing Borders next week. It will be Thanksgiving. So definitely, Alex, you and your family, I hope you have a wonderful, happy Thanksgiving. I hope everybody at home has a happy Thanksgiving. I don't care which side of the border you're on. Enjoy time with friends and family. That's what holidays are all about. No matter what you believe, whatever you celebrate, enjoy that time with the people most important to you and be thankful. I'm thankful for Alex. I'm thankful for this show. I'm definitely thankful for everybody that supports this network. And by supporting this network, hit that subscribe button down below. Show us that you love us. Leave a comment. We've gotten pretty good engagement, Alex, from some of these fighters we've been covering on LUX Fight League. Costa, like some of the stuff we posted on him a couple weeks ago. A couple of people have jumped in and been excited by us talking about them. This is a platform you don't see very many people talking about Mexican MMA. So we're excited to do it, excited to bring you something different. And you never know what's going to come out of Alex's mouth next. So you never know. A couple weeks ago, he had a whole story about getting in trouble as a youth and how it led him down this path now. Earlier in the season, he's talking about eating cricket tacos. Who knows what's coming out of his mouth in a couple weeks? You have to stay tuned to see that. Alex, thank you for your time today. I'm looking forward to talking about more fights with you in a couple weeks. Maybe we'll profile another fighter since we're on an off week as far as fights go. We'll talk about that off air. Ladies and gentlemen, thank you for watching. This is Crossing Borders. For Extremo Alex Soto, I'm Mike Ginn. Go check out his collection on fightersfirst.shop. Save 20%, promo code BF20. Of course, you can check it out on all our social media. The links are in the description below. Alex, you have a good one. This is Crossing Borders. I'm Mike Ginn. We're out.